Good morning, I'm Daryl Ponton. Thanks for joining me today. Today, I got a little scrapping project I'm gonna work on. I'm gonna tear apart a few motors and a couple other odds and ends. If you're new to our channel, thanks for joining us. Subscribe and like. It things apart. Now, some of the junk pieces I've had for recycling. Once in a while, you get something interesting, but it's usually I tear that down also. I thought if you wanted to get started junking, why not get started on something that's going to make you money? Now let's get started on a few fan motors. Taking off the motors and separating the metals. Now if you're a first time scrapper, you have to find copper. Copper is a poor man's gold, and electric motors are a good place to get you started on scrapping. Once you get your little pile of motors stacked up, you can be on your way to collecting some good hard cash. Now don't just stop at copper motors. How about this old fuse box? You say, psst, it's junk, I'll throw it out. I say, okay, I'll take that. Thank you very much. Now back to the goodies inside the fuse box. You have all these little pieces and brass and copper inside after you remove a few pieces just with the screwdriver. Now back to the motors. Get your pair of snips, side cutters, and start cutting. After you get the copper centers pushed out over a little bit to the side, it'll make it easier for you to pull it out with the screwdriver. Now use a sawzall if you have to cut it. You can use whatever you want. It's up to you. Now we come this far, why not pipes too? Few ends cut up, faucets are usually brass. Brass is your friend. You have to get the aluminum faucet handle separated from the rest is brass. Okay, now we have copper motors, copper pipes, fuse boxes, and television tube copper. This is an old big screen. You know, you've seen them. The big, huge TV screen that your friend has that nobody wants because it weighs 1,000,000 pounds. That's got copper in it also. We'll take that too, thank you very much. You know, I'm not gonna stop you there. There's just one more junk trick you can learn. Get some old security lights, what the heck? Let's tear them apart too. There's transformers inside. That's got copper windings. Now that you're getting the hang of junking, I know that you will search for this hidden treasure. Now you've graduated. Now that you learned that copper is a poor man's gold, you'll be on your way successfully recycling. And the best thing about recycling is going to put a little cash in your pocket to help pay your bills. Today, me and my son are heading up to the junkyard. The last couple of days, I've been cleaning up a little bit of scrapping here and there on my spare time. And we're going to head up there so we can cash out. I want to thank everyone for watching and subscribing and liking. We'll see you in the next one. Today I'm going to show you how to sort and separate items that you could scrap. First thing we're going to do is we're going to look through this stuff. Find all the stuff that's already cleaned up. Separate out all the steel. If you're not for sure if it's steel, just take a magnet. Some of your stuff will be mixed metals. You can separate that in a different pile. Motors. Put those separate. Transformers. Coils. All the components that got copper in them. Alright, we got a lot of different stuff in here. Like I said, we'll take the metal out first. But you know this metal, separate that off first. Screws and bolts, anything that sticks to the magnet. Then we'll separate out the smaller items that have copper or brass in them and put that in a separate container. You can separate how you want. I like to separate it to put the items that I'm going to clean up in different buckets, get all the steel out, and I can go back later and clean up all the items that I need to work on. And we'll get a third container for the aluminum that needs cleaned up. Some of your items will be cleaned up already. You won't have to do much to them. If you're not for sure what the metal is, get a file or a grinder. If it's a gold color, it's brass. Alright, don't be fooled by the color either. Now that might look like aluminum, but it's not. Just clip the end and you'll see on the inside. Get that a lot with the stuff that's in electrical boxes. See there, you can see that's copper. Now if you, at first glance, you'd think, oh, that's just aluminum. But you can usually really tell by the weight. Aluminum doesn't weigh nothing. When you pick it up, you'll know. After you've been dealing with scrap for a little while, you'll know that a piece of aluminum doesn't hardly weigh anything. Now this is lead. Lead is not going to have any ring. Now you know it's lead. The magnet don't stick to it. It's real dense and it bends real easy. And when you tap it on something, it doesn't have a ring. This is stainless. Hear the ring? Here's a piece of aluminum. Can you hear the ring? We'll take a separate bucket for all our plug-ins. Cut the cords off of stuff and you can bring that in and get 60, 70, 80 cents a pound depending on the area and the price. Got some radiator ends off the air conditioner. Plug-ins that got brass in them. Got a bicycle sprocket. Gotta clean that up, get the aluminum off of it. Got some type of brake cylinder. It's got some brass on it that needs to be taken off. Got a fuel pump. It's got aluminum that has to be cleaned up on it. An old school generator. It's got a lot of copper in it. A paint sprayer. Sometimes these are brass, so you gotta check and make sure that it's not brass. Most of the time they're aluminum. Another old school generator. That'll have 2 or 3 pounds of copper in it. Another fuel pump that's got aluminum and it has some metal that has to be cleaned up. It's got a few brass fittings on it. Now this is a piece of copper. You're gonna have to take the file and follow it down. It looks rusty, but once you follow it off, you'll see that it's copper. Today's video, I'm gonna show you how to make some money off of some useless, outdated items that you may have laying around in your garage. All right, today's items we're gonna recover copper out of. We got some old ignition coils that are outdated, starter solenoid, and some voltage regulators. Now let's take them apart, see how much copper we can get out of them. long and tedious work, but I got it all finished up. All right, here's what we got left to reclaim the copper out of. It has to be burned off first before we can reclaim the copper. I want to thank everyone for watching and following along, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Today I'm going to show you how to put cash in your pocket by tearing old generators and starters apart. Here's what we got to work with. We got 3 old generators and 1 old starter off a tractor. Let's start taking them apart. This is a starter off an older tractor. You got a few bolts on the end here to take off. It doesn't take a lot of effort to get these apart, get the copper out of them. You really don't need a lot of tools to take some of this stuff apart. It's just a few of the necessities, a hammer, a chisel. It helps if you have an impact wrench, but it's not necessary. You could just use a ratchet or a regular wrench. Now, in order to get the copper out of the armatures, you're going to have to burn those off because there's a coating on them, then you're not going to get that copper out of there. The older motors and starters, they have a lot more copper than the new ones. A lot of the new ones are aluminum windings, and it's a waste of your time taking them apart. You don't want to mess around with that and take apart the ones with the aluminum windings. It takes too much time and you don't make anything. Sometimes I'll tear it apart anyway just to show the viewers how much money you'll actually make on it. Now, if you're not afraid of getting your hands a little bit dirty, this is a pretty good trade to get into, tearing junk apart to make extra money. There's still a lot of scrap out there that you can get. A lot of people got full-time jobs and they ain't got time to mess around with this stuff. So that leaves it open for the people that need extra money. Just go around and ask the people in your neighborhood if they got any scrap they're throwing out. And most of the time, if they have some, they'll let you have it. And once they know that you're scrapping, they'll keep an eye out for you and let you know if they got something. And that helps out bring a little extra cash in your pocket. The biggest problem with scrapping is the fluctuation in the prices. They go up and down all the time. And the last couple loads we brought in, the prices went down 15%. The steel doesn't really pay as much as it did 2-3 weeks ago, but that's how the market works. So you just gotta kind of save it up if it's low priced, and cash it in when it's high. Just keep an eye on the market, call up there and ask them what the prices are. Now, there's a few flathead screws on the side of these starters and motors. You're gonna need a large screwdriver or an impact screwdriver. I use a chisel and knock them loose, then finish taking them apart with a screwdriver. That's the easiest way for me. I try to give the viewers that are interested in tearing junk apart a few pointers and a few items that they could take apart to make them the most money for their time. There's a lot of items you can waste your time on and not make very much money. You don't want to get wrapped up in that. You want to try to find the stuff that's got copper or brass in it. That makes you the most money. You have the aluminum. If it's torn apart already, that's not too bad, but if you got to waste too much time taking it apart, you're really only making a couple dollars an hour. Myself, it doesn't matter to me. I'm going to tear it apart anyway. But a lot of the viewers, they may not want to waste that amount of time on taking it apart. I'm trying to show the viewers a few pointers and tricks to help them make the most money for the shortest amount of time involved. The more scrap you take apart, you learn your own tricks and your own ways to do it a little bit faster. It all takes time. I learned a few pointers along the way, and it's taken me years to learn the fastest way to take stuff apart. Sometimes you do it the hard way for a while and you figure out an easier way. If you got somebody that can help you give you a few pointers, you might as well try that way and see if it works for you. One of the biggest parts to learning about scrapping is learning your metals, learning what they are and what they look like. And the biggest pointer for new scrappers is get a magnet. If the magnet don't stick to it, then you got a valuable metal that you can work with. Some of the stuff is difficult to tear apart and it takes a lot more time than what it's worth. I tear it apart to show the viewers exactly how much time it's going to take them, and they can figure out if it's worth their time or not. Now, a good way to find scrap is ask around and find out when the local garbage day is. You go out a day before and look around town, and I always like to ask the people if they're throwing it out, because sometimes kids will put their bikes up against the dumpsters and you don't want to take something that someone's not throwing out. And sometimes if you take the time to ask the people if they're throwing it out, you kind of get to know them and they'll feel a little more comfortable with you out there taking the stuff, and they'll put it aside just for you. And also, if you ask them, sometimes they have other stuff that they're going to get rid of, and they'll ask you if you want it, and it helps add to the scrap pile. I estimate there's another 3 or 4 pounds of copper in the armatures. Good communication is a key factor to helping you get a lot of scrap. You get to know the people and talk to people, and they're looking out for you. Once you talk to them one time, usually they don't have no problem with you going there. They recognize your vehicle, and it's not a problem for you to pick the stuff up. Break the ice and talk to the people. Get the permission so you don't have any problems in the future. The last thing you need is somebody upset because you took something that they weren't trying to throw out, and the police get involved. You don't need all that kind of drama because you're just trying to make a few extra bucks. Take the time and ask the people and get their permission. Now, a lot of other YouTube scrappers, I never see them ask the people, only if they see them. I know that people probably don't want you bothering them, knocking on their door, asking if they're going to throw it out. But in the end, that's the best way to do it. Once you do that once, you're good to go. Then you can go back there every week and pick up the stuff, and you don't have to bother them. They're okay with you out there taking the stuff. They'll actually put it aside for you. And also in my case, sometimes it gives me side jobs because I do handyman work, and I start talking to the people and get to know them on a personal basis. Most of the people around here, they already know me, they know our vehicle, and they know we're just out there looking for scrap. Once in a while, you get someone that's upset that you're out there messing around. We just don't go back to that place, pass by it, so it don't cause no problems. Personally, I've never had any problem with taking the scrap that people throw out because I've always took the time to ask them and talk to them. The last thing you need to do is give yourself a bad name, not taking the time to talk to people and getting in a bunch of trouble over taking something you ain't supposed to. So I encourage the new scrappers that are going around looking for it, take the time and talk to the people. Let their minds at ease so they didn't think you out there trying to steal nothing. And it's better for both of you. Another good time to look for scrap is after community garage sales. People throw a lot of stuff out. Take the time and ask them to make sure that they're throwing it out. I got some items that were salvaged out of a burn pile. Let's go take a look at them. Had some stuff in this bucket that I picked through and picked out what I thought could be recycled. We're going to clean that up. Got a few items that a friend brought over from a burn pile he was cleaning up around his place. We're going to see what kind of copper we can get out of this. What's going on, everybody? I'm Daryl Ponton. Thanks for joining me today. Today's junk project, I got this monstrosity I'm gonna tear apart. Let's go take a look. It says it's a hydraulic power unit. Sometimes I get strange and unusual things that I find. Looks like it's got a good sized motor on it. Yeah, I tear a lot of unusual things down, but I've never seen anything like this before. So it's all new to me. Get in here out of the wind so you can hear me. I got a few viewers that are in disbelief of making any money tearing it apart. That's fine. If you don't want to tear it apart, I'm not trying to tell you to tear it apart. I'm just trying to show you what I know. I even had one tell me that in the comments that, oh, I make less by tearing it apart. You never make less by tearing something apart. Never. Sometimes your labor is only going to pay you $1 or $2 an hour. That's the difference. You're still going to make more by tearing it apart. It's just a matter of how cheap you're willing to work and how far you want to break it down. Myself, I don't care. I'll break it down all the way to nothing to get the most out of it. My time, I don't really count that in because I'm not doing nothing anyway. So the more I tear apart and the more valuable metal I get, the more the payday is at the end. I try to show you in the videos the things that ain't worth tearing down, so you ain't wasting your time tearing it down. I do a lot of videos, a lot of the stuff is a waste of time tearing it down, but I'm doing it for the viewer's purpose, so they know what to tear down and what not to tear down to make the most money. I know it's not worth it to tear some of the stuff apart, but I do it for the viewers so they understand the things that can tear apart that's going to make them money. having trouble getting the copper out of electric motors, pull a few strands out before you try to pry them out of there. I'll show you. Sometimes these things are really hard to get out of here. You want to take and kind of twist that a little bit. It's not going to all come out at once. It's just in there too tight. All right, looks like we got about 4 pounds of copper. About 6.5 pounds of aluminum. Now the steel I'm gonna have to put on a couple times. The scale only goes up to 25 pounds. All right, there's the first batch of metal. That's about 20 pounds. You almost got 24 pounds there. Got one more item to weigh up for steel. This last piece is about 18.5 pounds. What's going on, everybody? I'm Darrell Ponton. Thanks for joining me today. Today I got an old power washer we're going to tear apart. Let's go take a look. All right, here's what we're working with. 680 power washer. Handy power washer, 680. Whatever that means. First started scrapping when I was about 12 years old. My grandfather, he used to do a little bit of scrapping. Me and my brother go ride around on the bikes and pick up aluminum cans. There wasn't a lot of aluminum cans back then because they just started making them in the late 60s. Tried to save up enough aluminum cans to fill up a 55-gallon drum. We had my grandfather bring them up to the scrapyard for us. I believe it was about 15 cents a pound for aluminum back then. Right, there's what we ended up with. It has to be all torn apart and see what we can get out of it. The rest of this is just steel. There ain't nothing else on there. Well, there's not much scrappable in there. My grandfather, he used to tear down old cribs and barns and houses and save all the electrical wire and burn it off to get the copper out of it, because copper back then was 95 cents a pound, so that was pretty valuable in the early 70s. I've been scrapping for probably 45, 46 years. Made a lot of extra money. You're not going to get rich, but you can pay your bills with it. Every little extra helps out nowadays. Everything's so expensive. Now I'm going to show you the best way to cut the band off the outside of this motor. You're going to want to try to line the sawzall up at the holes so you got less material to cut. All right, let's go weigh this up. All right, looks like we got about 22.5 pounds there. Got about 19.5 pounds more steel. And the last piece is about 14.5 pounds. 1.5 pounds of aluminum. 1/4 pound of brass. Almost 4 pounds of copper. Pound of insulated wire. What's going on, everybody? I'm Daryl Ponton. Thanks for joining me today. Today's project, I got a dryer I'm going to take apart. We're going to take a look on the inside. Right, here's what we got. This brand's a Roper. There's a lot of them that are similar to this one. We're going to go to the back and I'll show you how to get in through the access panel. Now I'm tearing this dryer apart for scrap, but if you got a dryer that's making noise, I'll show you what the problem is. First thing, we're going to take this back panel off. Now most of these are 1/4 inch screws on the back of these. Now you can recover a little bit of brass out of this. You see it right there. not a lot to these dryers, but I wanted to take it apart anyway. You're going to have some type of coil. It might be round, it might be like this, but what's going to happen is this wire here is going to have a break in it. This one seems to be all right, but for some reason they threw it out anyway. I can get down here and show you what's going on. Now here's what happened. This is the tightener. This thing comes completely off. This goes in here somewhere. This belt goes here and it'll go around the drum. This piece here will go up against it like this. What happens a lot of times is the belt breaks, or this will wear out. This center will wear out and it'll start making noise. If it isn't that, then it's going to be these with a drum ride. Sometimes them get wore out. It's only a couple things that's going to stop your dryer from working. It's always sure to find a little bit of cash when you get in a dryer. That's one other reason I take them apart. You never know what's inside. There could be a ring in there, there could be money. And plus it's easier if it's all torn apart to load it up in the truck. It only takes a few minutes. Now on this motor, before you get too anxious to take it apart for the copper wires, best thing to do is snip this to make sure that it's copper, which it's not. I don't know, I'll get in there closer so you can see what I'm talking about. You see that silver color, that means that's aluminum, that ain't copper. It wouldn't be silver if it was copper. I'm gonna go ahead and take the rest of the screws out of this, finish breaking it down all the way. All right, there's all the steel. I estimated probably about 80 pounds, maybe 90 pounds. The new dryers and washers don't weigh that much, not like the old ones. I went ahead and recovered all the aluminum out of the motor just for the video's sake and just for you viewers, so you know how much material you can recover out of a dryer. All right, that's what I recovered out of the motor. Like I said, these ain't copper, that's aluminum. I'll get in there close, you can see that silver looking color, that means it's aluminum. Got about 2 pounds of aluminum. You can see there's not very much brass. Recovered everything I could off the ends of the wires and some copper. That little bit of copper windings there, that's from the switch. You take that apart, there's a little circular thing in there that's got copper. Some of the ends are from the switches. And over here, if you want to go through the measures of taking that all the way down, see a little piece on the end there, one's round and one's square. That's contact switches. They're inside them little boxes behind the control panel. Each piece there, you can see it there. One's round and one's square. That's a little piece of silver. If you want to go through the trouble taking all of them apart and save them up, you have to smelter them down. But just for recycling purposes, know that there's silver also inside washers and dryers. Now here's a little piece right there to come off. Perfect. Got a little bit of insulated wire. This coil will come off from the electrical heating element. That's stainless. Here's the change we found in there. I found $1.36. Is it worth recovering the precious metals in a dryer? As far as your time is concerned, no, it's really not. For video sakes and for the viewers, yes. I went ahead and tore everything apart just so you guys could see what's inside and what the value is. I don't mind tearing down stuff like this, mainly because it makes more room to put scrap in there and it's not so big and bulky. At that, I'm going to wrap it up. Is it worth tearing apart a dryer? Financially, no, it's not really. Your time invested is going to be more. I done it more or less for the viewer's purpose. Could give anyone helpful hints on repairs. Like for instance, on this one, the tensioner come off. That was all that was wrong with this dryer. It fell off. They could have took it apart and put it back on and it worked just fine. I didn't want to salvage it because it's electric, and I don't want no electric dryer. It costs too much for electricity. At that, I'm going to end the video, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Now last week we had a few rain days that kind of delayed us and we couldn't scrap every day. Couldn't get out to the trailer project, but in between the rain I had a chance to clean up a little bit of scrap. Now, I always like to start out with electric motors so the copper pile can get stacked up. The night before, we were gathering up a few more goodies from the trailer site. Mostly steel. We got an old washing machine. I know it's at least 100 to 120 pounds, so that'll help out on the steel weight. But I know if we want a profitable run to the scrapyard, we need some copper. So I worked on separating some of this copper to sweeten up the deal. And we had plenty of unfinished stuff to work on. Some of the wire we brought in was insulated, but you have to sacrifice a little on the price to get the scrap load together to bring it in. We had a few small radiators from an air conditioner we tossed in too. And we had some miscellaneous aluminum we tossed in the truck also. An old filing cabinet and a couple barrels of steel from all the motors and a few other odds and end pieces we had laying around. We had a few motors that had aluminum windings in. We had to separate them out. Now, we didn't know that the price wasn't very good to bring them in like that. So next time we're gonna know to toss them in with the steel. Now we're gonna head up to the scrapyard and try to cash this out and see what we can get. You can see there's a puddle of water. It had been raining the day before. It was putting a little delay on our scrapping and tearing apart the trailer projects, but we managed to get a load together and bring it up here to try to make some money to get a few bills paid. Now this place is always busy. They got something going on. If you're new to our channel, make sure you click on that subscribe and like button and hit that bell for notifications for updated future videos. Now we just finished unloading the steel. We're heading up to where they bring in the aluminum and copper and dropping that off. We had a pretty good pile of insulated wire and a bucket of aluminum and a couple of motors. But like I said earlier, we found out about the electric motors, that they don't pay very much. If you don't tear them apart, you're better off just to throw them in with the steel, because I think they only brought 5 cents a pound and it don't make a lot of sense. But from now on, we just toss them into the steel to get the price of steel. hopefully with the rain clearing up, we'll be able to get back out to the trailer and get a few more projects done out there and get some more scrapping videos put up. Now there's what we come up with at the end of the day, which is not a bad load. We each made a little bit over $100 each. We had to put a little time and effort, but all in all, it's not too bad. I want to thank everyone for watching and subscribing, and we'll see you in the next one. Today, I'm going to be working on these electric motors, and I'm going to show you how you can put a little extra cash in your pocket if you put the work in. At the end of the day, you're going to come up with a pretty good amount of money. Sorting through some stuff here, dig out some more copper motors. Now this is what we come up with after going through all that stuff that we had. There was a few other in there, but we figured this would be enough to get going on. Some of these are alternators and starters and fan motors. Got various kinds of motors that we could tear into to try to harvest the copper out of. Got a ceiling fan in there also. We got some seal units. We got to cut them open because they got a nice motor inside them, and them usually got some pretty good windings. We got a few other odds and ends that got motors that we still have to take off, but we're going to try to rip into this and see how much money we can get out of this and how much copper we can get out of this. I got to start by taking some of them apart before I get going on them. Got a bunch of motors we're going to start tearing apart, get them ready to start taking the copper windings out. Now most of these, well, it's just going to have a little screw on each side, 3 or 4 places that you got to take off. You got to separate the copper windings out of the housings of these motors. This is an old starter we found laying around when we was digging around in that building, cleaning up. This is a little electric motor that was off of something we found in a box. Various types of motors that we got up here. We're going to take them all apart and try to get as much copper as we can. Copper prices being up there past $3.50 a pound, it's not a bad investment to spend a little bit of time tearing apart some motors that you have laying around in your house and make yourself a few bucks extra also. I encourage everyone to recycle and do their part. We don't want the landfills to be filling up when we can put that money in our pocket instead of landfill. Now some of this stuff doesn't come apart too easy, but if you keep at it, like on this one, the aluminum is pretty easy to break. You don't want to have to do that, but sometimes the bolts or screws don't come out, so you got to take whatever measure you can to get the product cleaned up and acceptable to the junkyard. if you see on this one, this is a different type of motor. It doesn't have the windings on the armature. It's like a magnet type of motor. A lot of this stuff is tedious to do. Keep at it. You'll get quite a bit done in a short time if you just keep at it. Some of the stuff you can't break apart. You have to sacrifice it. You're not going to get it all. But this is the first stage we take to breaking it down. We get all the exterior pieces off, so it's down to just the copper windings. Now these sealed units, you're definitely going to need a sawzall or an angle grinder or something to cut through this thick metal, because it's really difficult to get them out of there. But it's going to reward you very much once you do, because there's a lot of copper inside those. You can see those two tall ones right there behind. That's what come out of the canisters. There's a lot more copper in them. This is the armatures. Them will have to be burned off, or else you can bring them in like that for electric motors. Otherwise, you're not going to get the copper out of those. We got two motors here. I took one apart and I discovered it's got aluminum windings, and the other one we checked beforehand and decided we're going to discard that one too, because it has aluminum windings also. That'll go on with the electric motors that you sell instead of breaking them down for copper. Now on some of these types of motors, they have a piece of string around the windings and you have to snip that off first. It's just threaded around the windings in the way, and you have to take a utility knife or a pair of snips or something to cut those little pieces of a type of rope that holds it all together. That's why I put that one aside for a minute, because it's pretty tedious, and I moved on to something a little bit easier. Yeah, it takes a lot of hand wrenching, and trust me, by the time you're done, you'll have carpal tunnel. It's not that bad. I mean, you just can't do that every single day. You got to change it up and do something else, because it'll get to you after a while. That's the measures it takes to get the job done, and you have to weigh it out to see if it's worth to you or not. I like recycling. I don't have a problem with it, and plus it helps pay a few bills for me, so I just keep at it every day because I like to do it. I like to make a little bit of money doing it. In the end, you get pretty decent money, but there's a lot of time that you don't figure in when you're going to collect it, you're loading it, you're bringing it back, you're unloading it, and you're tearing it apart. So there's a lot of unseen time that's involved in it other than just tearing it apart. You have to pick it up, you have to tear it apart, then you have to get it on the table. Now, here's what we come up with. It was about 3 hours we worked on it, and we got 20 pounds. So that'll bring pretty decent money at the scrapyard. You throw that in with a few other things, and there's the going price now. It's $3.50 a pound, so that was $66, and we worked about 3 hours. I want to thank everyone for following along and watching and subscribing, and we'll see you in the next one. Today we're going to be doing a little scrapping for money. We've been saving that stuff up all winter, and the snow's finally gone away, so now we might as well get this mess cleaned up and make a few bucks while we're cleaning up the mess. I'm gonna get this set up here with this plastic so little pieces don't fall down in between. Put a few wrenches out. Now I'm going to sort through what I already have, separate the copper and the brass. The prices, when I first started scrapping out, was about 11. I think aluminum was about 12 or 15 cents a pound. Steel was $25 a ton. Copper was about 50 or 60 cents a pound. We got that done. I'm going to get started on these faucets. The faucets got brass and aluminum and copper. So we have to separate that to get the most cash that we can. Now I'm trying to knock this end piece off there. Sometimes they get stuck. Basically, going to be separating copper, aluminum, brass, stainless steel, and iron. Most of the faucet is brass. It's an older type of faucet or a modern expensive one. The cheaper ones are almost all plastic. I'm taking off the metal strip that holds the sink down, because if you don't take that off, they're going to give you a secondary price. You see there, that piece of steel on the edge there. And I'm knocking out the center, and that was plastic. They don't like that. They're going to give you the low price on it if you don't get it cleaned up. Sinks are stainless steel, and most of the drainers that are in the sinks are stainless, but sometimes they're brass. You have to snip the end and see if it looks yellow colored. That'll tell you if it's brass. Now I'm snipping the ends off of this gas line. The ends are brass, the flexible part is stainless. A little piece of plastic on this cover pipe. I want to get rid of that too. We'll pick that up later. Now we're going to start taking the ceiling fan apart. It's usually a Phillips screwdriver. It's a lot quicker if you have a screw gun. You can do it by hand if you don't have a screw gun. This little top piece, get my hands on there, that part's aluminum. That I just tossed in there with steel. Now we're getting down to the meat there. And snip these little wires off, take this nut off. I'm supposed to remove this cover, Phillips screwdriver. Sometimes they get stuck. Just tap them on the top of the hammer, flatten them out a little, they'll come right out. Now we're gonna start snipping this up after I knock this out of here. Get some of this good copper out of there. Get your pair of snips. I think this little motor, we weighted up 3/4 of a pound of copper and about 1 pound of aluminum. I think 7 or 8 pounds of steel. Take it all apart. Then you get a big pile and then cash it in. Now the prices finally went up a little bit. They were down so low, nobody's gonna recycle if the prices ain't decent. It's just gonna pile up in landfills. So now the prices got back up there a little bit, so it's gonna help the recycling for everybody. Everybody will be a little more motivated to recycle if they get a little bit of money for it. I think this motor here only got about 1/2 pound of copper. It's a little cheaper of a ceiling fan. Now I'm weighing this up here so you can see from beginning, the whole thing weighs about 13 pounds. Just to give you some kind of idea when you're tearing it apart if it's worth it or not. Obviously, if you've never done it before, it's going to take you a little while. Just your time off and you got extra time, you can't count your labor because you ain't going to make nothing.
Not each family member.
See what we got there. Looks like we got about 11 pounds, 11.5 pounds, and then a little bit over 1 pound of copper for 2 fans. Now I got this, looks like a little newer model, larger. There we go, that's what we're looking for. I think this one was a little bit over a pound on the copper by the time we got done cleaning it up. More work you gotta do. So, trade-off is in what the cash you get back at the end. If you want to recycle and make a little extra cash, We used to make, about 10 years ago, it was easy to make 50 or 100 bucks a day. Easy. In the last few years, it's really not been worth it because you can't even make $50 a day and you're going to work 4 or 5 hours and nobody's going to do it. It's just a waste of your time. Steel. It's like about a pound, a little bit over a pound of aluminum, and about a pound of copper. Well, yeah, that's the weight, 4 pounds. Well, we're gonna wrap it up there. So I think we ended up all together getting about 5 pounds. Today, I'm gonna be tearing apart this microwave to let you see what's inside. We're going to see what kind of scrap we can get out of it to salvage. See if it's got a little bit of copper and brass, aluminum. Got a few screws on the perimeter and 1/4 inch. Take them off. Not gonna need a whole lot of tools to take this apart. Most of it's Phillips screwdriver head or 1/4 inch socket. Might need a pair of snips for a couple of these wires too. This is a microwave from about 1990, a little bit before 2000, so it's a little heavier than the ones that are on the market nowadays. Every one you tear apart is a little bit different. You gotta try to get the most out of whatever you can. I know we're gonna have a little bit of scrap that we have to throw out. We try to keep as much metal as we can and wires, stuff like that. This is a microwave we got out of the little trailer we tore apart last week. So I figure I'd go ahead and tear it apart, try to give you an idea of what's inside one of these things. Yeah, they don't make them like that anymore. A lot more plastic on newer ones. There's not going to be as much copper in the newer ones either. A lot of them copper windings, they put aluminum now, so it's getting a little cheaper and cheaper. Now I'm going to work on getting this transformer out of there, get some of this wires out of the way so I can get this tore down. Try to get as much copper out of it as we can. Now we got pretty much the carcass left here, just metal, so that's going to go in with the sheet iron. Some of the little things in here are a little tedious. Got a lot of brass pieces that are really small. I try to save everything. Anything that's got any kind of value stack up after a while. Might only be small, save enough of them. This transformer was a perfect example of aluminum windings. If you see that white looking color there when you snip, that's no good. That's not going to be worth hardly anything. That's aluminum. Unfortunately, even some of the older ones, they did that. Probably wasn't a popular brand. It's probably an off brand. Nevertheless, it's a lot bigger transformer than what the newer ones have. Now, if you cut the edge of some of them pieces, you're not for sure if it's aluminum or brass. You snip the edge to look at it, and it's gonna be that brassy looking, yellow looking color. Otherwise, if it's white, silvery color, it's more likely aluminum. If it ain't aluminum, it's gonna be steel. Now, this little piece is solid copper. The end's got metal on it. You definitely have to have a pair of side cutters to get that metal piece off there. Otherwise, they're not gonna like that when you put that in with the copper. We're weighing up here 1 pound of aluminum, 2 pounds of copper, 3 pounds of plastic, and I think a 1/4 pound of brass. I had to separate the steel because my scale only goes up to 25 pounds. I think we ended up with 25 pounds once, and the second time was 18 pounds. Close to 45 pounds, but if you figure the total weight. Now I'm cutting the ends off this transformer. Get about down to the last piece of this thing. Once I cut the ends there, you'll be able to see it a little better. Now that's the copper piece there. It wasn't cooperating too good. Times you just gotta have a little patience. Work at it long enough, it's gonna come out of there. Morning, I'm Daryl Potton. Thanks for joining me today. Yesterday, me and my son went out to the trailer and we tore a little bit of stuff apart, trying to get a little scrap brought in and try to get the job finished up. These are some of the things we brought back from the trailer from earlier today. We're going to try to tear them apart, get them ready to bring to the scrap yard. Got an air conditioning unit to come off the trailer that I'm working on right now. Trying to get the radiators and get a little bit of copper out of it to make a few extra bucks at the scrap yard. Got a little bit of aluminum that we're cleaning up and gathering up, putting that in the truck, and some wire and a few other odds and ends laying around we're going to toss in there for the load. Takes a little bit of work to get the stuff prepared to get the most money for it, but you have to put the work in, otherwise you don't hardly get anything. Now that we got a chance to do a little bit of this work, figure it's nice weather out, it's a good time to get this taken care of and bring it in and cash out a little bit on the scrap. This second trailer is taking a little bit longer than what we expected, but you gotta expect that when you got something old like that that's buried in the ground and you got a lot of obstacles in the way to get taken care of, so you can bring the scrap in and get a little bit of money for your effort. I was looking at this water heater that we took out of there. I was going to make a video, but there's not really much in it, so we just tossed that in with the scrap to get a little extra iron. But we did manage to get some radiators out of the air conditioner and a little bit of copper in there, so we're trying to get the most out of there that we can. So copper is a pretty decent price right now. Probably got a couple more days out there working on the trailer before we finish it all up, but we'll plug away at it one day at a time, a couple hours here and there. Eventually we'll get it cleaned up. This is that old refrigerator come out of that trailer. There's not a whole lot on it. There's a little bit of metal on the back, but most of it's styrofoam and plastic. So I'm gonna take off whatever I can salvage and throw it in the truck for the junkyard. We ended up with a little bit of wire and a few copper pipes out of the whole deal, but gotta work on whatever you got on hand. Here's some of the aluminum we gathered up. Got all kinds of different aluminum stuff in there from that trailer. Here's some of the siding took off. That's usually a little bit different price, depending on the amount that you have. If you don't have too much, they usually just throw it in with the other stuff. You have a larger amount to separate it, give you a different price, or else you have a different place that they have to put it. Now we're going to head in and see if we can cash this all out for a hard-earned day. Now the last couple of days have been Earth Day up at the junkyard. Pays a little bit more for aluminum cans, but it's really not that much compared to what it used to be. I think it's like 60 cents a pound now. It's been 50 cents a pound for years, probably 15, 20 years. The last few years the price dropped down. It finally got back up there where it's halfway decent price to bring in. Now this place here that we bring our scrap to here, it pays pretty good on the steel prices, so that's why we come here now. As you can see, they got mountains of steel in the background there. And there's what we cashed out on for today. I want to take this time to thank everyone that watches and subscribe to my channel. Appreciate all the time and effort that you spend watching my videos, and thank you very much.